How I helped my client go from having a puppy that was biting constantly to no puppy biting in 3 days. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name's Brittany. I work with puppy owners one-on-one all over the world to help them train their puppies right from home. So the first thing we had to do was identify this dog's threshold. So how long could he engage with the owner before starting to bite? This is something that's so important and something I see overlooked so often. Think about it like a toddler. If you have a toddler, they haven't napped, they usually nap, they haven't napped. Now it's like 4, 5, like it's starting to get towards their bedtime, but they still have a couple hours left. You know they're exhausted because they haven't napped. They start throwing a temper tantrum. There's literally nothing you can say to reason with them at that point. At that point, they're overtired, they're overstimulated, and again, there's literally nothing we can say to reason with them at that point. We know that their need at that time is to kind of have a reset, like have a nap or go to sleep, because they're so overstimulated, they're so overtired. Now with puppies, it's similar, but on a smaller scale. So we have to figure out how long can they engage with their owner before they start losing that self-control and getting overstimulated. With this puppy, it was about 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, that's when he started really losing that self-control, biting more, getting to the point where the owner found it really difficult to redirect. So this puppy was starting to bite before that 30 minutes, but we noticed that 30-minute mark was really when it got difficult for the owner to redirect, which is what told us, okay, this is his threshold. This is how long he can be out of the crate when he's actually in a state of being able to listen. So what we did is we used this threshold to set up what's called timed play and rest time. So knowing his threshold was 30 minutes, what we did was about 20 minutes of play, and then we would do 10-minute break in the crate. And what this is doing is during the time your puppy's interacting with you, they're kind of creeping away from self-control. They're getting in that overstimulated state a little bit, but then we're catching them, giving them a break before they get too overstimulated. What this does is ensures that your dog is, I like to break it down into colors. So green zone is when a dog has full self-control. They're not overstimulated at all. Yellow zone is kind of where we want to keep them. They're like creeping away from self-control, but they're still in a state where they have some. And then red zone is like that overexhausted toddler when they're so overstimulated. By doing these little naps, they're kind of creeping into that yellow zone during play, but then we're bringing them right back to that green zone before we continue to engage with them. Now, this isn't going to magically fix the biting because that's still how your dog thinks that they're going to get your attention. We're going to talk about that in the next part. But what it is going to do is ensure that when they do start biting, they're in a state where they're not overstimulated so that when you redirect, they're actually in a state where they're able to absorb what you're trying to teach them. Doing these time play and rest times is not magically going to fix the biting, but again, what it is going to do is ensure that when you redirect, they're in a state where they're able to listen, which will make the redirection more effective. Now, there are several other ways to prevent this overstimulation, which I recommend doing on top of the time play and rest time. I outlined this in a plan for my clients. So again, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one and getting a customized plan for your puppy, head to link in my bio. Now, on top of doing those time play and rest times with this client, what we also did is a redirection technique to teach the puppy that biting did not get him attention. So our goal with this redirection technique, again, was to show this puppy that the biting actually did not get him any attention. So as soon as he started biting, all the owner would do is get up and walk away. She wouldn't even say anything because, again, we wanted to show him you don't get an ounce of attention for biting. You have to remember that puppy biting is a learned behavior. They bite at their moms for attention, they get fed, etc. So from the time they're born, they learn that nipping gets attention. So now when they come to us, it's kind of our job to reverse that and teach them that the biting actually doesn't get any attention from us. So she wouldn't say anything. She would just get up and walk away for like 2 to 5 seconds, keeping herself separated with a baby gate so she could still see him for supervision. After 2 to 5 seconds, she would go back, greet him again, see what he was doing. If he was still biting, she would repeat that process. When he was no longer biting, she would ask him to sit and then only give him attention when he sat. This was showing him sitting and having self-control is the behavior that does get my attention. But biting actually does the opposite. We remove attention. The first day, she had to walk away several times before he stopped biting. But as she was consistent with this, within 3 days, he would just sit for her attention instead of bite. Now, keep in mind, we were also customizing this to him and her schedule, and we were working on other self-control techniques that worked for him that we worked on our training call. So With your dog, it could be a little different, but this is kind of it described in a nutshell. Let me know if you give this a try. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one to train your puppy right from home from anywhere in the world, head to the link in my bio.